Maybe you should have thought of that before. Hey, look out!
This show was good. I remember coming home from school to see Power Rangers Mystic Force airing on Jetix, and I don't think I ever finished it.
Maybe you should have thought of that before.
I started watching it on a whim through the Shout Factory DVD sets, and it actually surprised me just how much I actually remember from it. The show was fully magical, and with that comes lots of trolls, goblins, and just mystical stuff. There's a lot of things they do in this series that even just at a face value standpoint is kinda scary.
What kind of shit is that?
Like a monster that turns people into stone, including Maddie the Blue Ranger when all she was trying to do was overcome her fear of shyness.
Oh no.
You mean to tell me they cut down the budget of Power Rangers SPD, but they had enough budget to make a fully life-size statue of the Blue Ranger on the team that's like not even a CG model, it's like an actual thing that they can touch? Well, that's actually probably kind of cheap, I don't know.
Maddie looked pretty ticked off when she left.
Women. So, what did you...
First of all, the acting in this show was great on so many fronts.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying. I'm gonna leave you to it.
Like girl, you are literally Bridget Mendler. This entire cast just gives lemonade mouth, and that's kind of crazy. There was also an episode about belly buttons that I vaguely remember. I haven't gotten to that in my rewatch yet, but look, just take my word. That happened, right?
What kind of shit is that?
It wasn't until the two-parter, The Stranger Within, that I really realized just how much of it frightened me as a kid. Vita, the Pink Ranger, gets taken to this party where the DJ ends up being a monster in disguise that can turn anyone into a vampire just by playing his music long enough.
She's really
What
good.
kind of shit?
Chip, the Yellow Ranger, being the super geek, allows him to spot the change almost immediately, and it gives his stereotype some pretty neat purpose. I don't know, just the idea of one of the main members of a superhero team turning evil or into a monster at all just terrified me. Only because I pictured it being one of my friends and just the sort of helplessness of it. She's pale, has the red eyes, fangs, and continuously goes after Chip to bite his neck, and I just remember as a kid finding it a bit unsettling. Of course that was the point, but even still, as an adult I can appreciate just how hard the show went into doing the mystical stuff and just having fun with it.
This could be a two-clove night.
As Chip finds out how to reverse things, we get really nice character moments between the two of them, leaning into never giving up and just hearing their childhood stories of each other.
Remember when we were 7 and the kids picked on me for bringing that superhero costume to school on Halloween?
You wore that costume every day. You even wore it to prom.
I looked good too.
It really well illustrates the bond of the two of them, and I found it very nicely written.
So, even if you're a vampire, I'll never give up on you. And I'll fight those that try and hurt you with my last breath.
One thing I want to mention is how the monster tells the mind-controlled vampires to, quote, destroy the city, and the only thing we ever see them doing is standing outside and screaming at nothing. Like, actually, like, what was they supposed to do? Like, ain't nobody scared of y'all. The team manages to take out the monster, reversing the vampire spell on the city, but ending the first part, we find out that just about everyone had their spell reversed, except Vita herself.
If Vita was a vampire, she couldn't cross that line.
Let me check.
Finding out that Vita was instead under the spell by Necroli, Mystic Force scrambles to keep track of Vita while also crafting the Dawn Crystal, an item that can release the vampire hold.
Maybe you should let her out. And maybe you shouldn't.
A lot of things happen. Vita disguises herself as Claire to escape the vampire-proof circle that Chip drew on the floor. She ends up in the hands of Necroli. Chip crafts the Dawn Crystal after being told the ingredients are impossible to find, only for Udana to be like, well, I just went to Food Line and picked them up. One thing I absolutely love is that early on, V introduces a new pose she learns, which is literally just a peace sign, but I mean, it's also the letter V, which I'm assuming is because it happened in Magi Ranger, so they just incorporated it into her character anyways, and it stands for victory. Anyways, she's so proud of this pose, and it ends up becoming the reason that Chip doubts her return after she comes back saying she defeated Necroli all on her own.
Vampire Slayer.
Udana?
Both Chip and Udana are the main ones that realize that something is not right. Maddie being so blinded by the happiness that her sister is back only adds to her ignorance of there being anything wrong with her sister.
Now get them! Yes, mistress.
It's always refreshing to see Ranger versus Ranger when it's part of the core team as opposed to a 6th or extra Ranger. You can feel just how serious everyone is about saving their friend, and it makes this two-parter really interesting. It ends up getting to the point that Chip believes he has to sacrifice her in order to keep the rest of the team safe, which is something she tells him in the first part.
Sometimes you have to sacrifice the one in order to save everyone else.
What?
Chip manages to break his way into the real Vita with her sending her new pose as a sign to whip out the Dawn Crystal and have it set on Necroli.
I feel my power surging back into my body. You're back! Yes!
Defeating Necroli, V has her vampire spell reversed, leaving the Rangers to now set their sights on the Centaurus Wolf Megazord that emerges afterwards.
Magical source! Mystic force!
Nothing of note happens in this fight. Also, Necroli revives herself somehow. Anyways, I just wanted to talk about this two-parter because it really stuck out to me. One, because of how it terrified me growing up, but also because of how real it felt, specifically between Chip and Vita. No one else, including Maddie, really does much of anything in these two episodes outside of just going along with things. It's purely a Pink and Yellow Ranger-centered storyline, but that's all it really had to be. Focus episodes like this, I feel, are the most meaningful, as even though story isn't necessarily advanced all that much, the characters are. So much personality is exuded between these two, and not once does it feel forced. Power Rangers Mystic Force, I feel, isn't talked about all that terribly much, but it excels in its characters. Now to get to that belly button episode. Lord help me.
What kind of shit is that?
Alicia, Andrew, Austin, Brandon, Katie, Disney Captain, Donnie, Emilia, Helen, Ian, Junior the Hedgehog, Matthew, Mia T. Toon, Prima Donna,